So welcome back, Grant, and thank you for being with us today. And by way of beginning the discussion, could you talk a little bit about kind of what the college landscape looked like before COVID-19 and before we jump into all of the financial impacts on colleges?
Sure. I think that sometimes I forget that the college landscape looked pretty exciting, not necessarily in a good way, before COVID arrived. It seemed as though there was going to be a lot of sort of struggle for various institutions who in some ways maybe were already struggling. People were trying to get a sense of whether the financial models that a number of colleges were using were sustainable over the next even 2-3 years, certainly over the next 5 or 10. And that was before they shut down. That was before the pandemic. That was before all of this stuff. A couple of consultants did a study using some graduate student labor in Boston, trying to get a handle on how many institutions really were running financial systems that did not seem sustainable. And they came up with a very big number. The number was so big that there was a quick and very energetic clamor on the part of some colleges and other people to make sure that the study was not published, because colleges whose names were going to appear on it said, well, if you publish this list, this is pretty much going to be the death knell for us, because who would contribute and support an institution that a study was saying was not sustainable? So there were already lots of kind of bumps in the road with respect to higher education. People were concerned about before COVID. I can't imagine that the current situation will help in any way. And I think it will push a whole bunch of institutions either closer to or over the edge. What was happening in the past primarily was that they were doing a lot of discounting. And so colleges were saying that they were charging a certain amount, but in fact, they were not bringing in that much money, tuition, room and board from most of their students. The national discount rate within the last couple of years had actually passed 50%, which means that overall colleges were getting less than 50% of what they said they were charging. And some families were paying the full freight, and some families were paying very little, and there was lots of in between. But overall, they were getting less than 50% of their stated pricing. And there was a lot of concern about whether that really made sense, whether that model of pricing made sense. Some colleges actually just made decisions to dramatically reduce their tuitions to reflect the reality. So colleges were already, with an exception of course, a handful of very wealthy ones, many colleges were spending a lot of time trying to figure out how they were going to keep things going over the longer run. And they were seriously talking about cutting programs in various areas. There has sadly, in my opinion, been a big drop in the number of students majoring in humanities and social sciences. In the last 10 years, it's really been precipitous. The number of history majors, and I was a history major in college, has dropped, I think, in the range of 30+% in the last 10 years, which is enormous. So there were colleges that were considering cutting departments that just didn't have enough students in them to justify the staffing. So there were lots of challenges, and they have only been increased by the current situation. On the other hand, these crises always create opportunities. So it's important to think about that side of it too.